With Lululemon, the real gift happens when they're living in it. When you give them the softest loungewear set, the real gift is this. And this. And this. This holiday, Lululemon makes it easy to give a gift that goes beyond. Open the moment. Shop now at Lululemon.com.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 3.
Hello, America. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the nation. The phone number, 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I am happy to have you. I got a cable stuck in my face. There we go. I want to actually begin this hour with a phone call from Mark, who's been waiting patiently, but it directly, I suspect, plays into what I wanted to talk about. So I want to start there. However, before I get there, I got to tell you, I'm not a watcher of the awards shows. When I was a kid, I did. But they've just become too self-referential nonsense, liberal, boring, preachy pablum, the Emmys, the Oscars, and the like. But I was just reading during commercial break that the show Shogun wrapped up, just mopped up massive piles of awards, and it is so well earned. Shogun is one of the best shows on television in the last decade for sure. It is on Hulu, Disney Plus. A lot of it is in Japanese. You got to read the subtitles. It is a remarkably fantastic show. If you haven't watched Shogun, you should. And it earned every single one of those awards that it got last night, even as I don't care for those programs anymore. Now, I want to go to Mark. Mark, you're going to be up first. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Eric. Good. How are you doing?
Great.
Hey, regarding the things going on in Springfield and Aurora and other places, what do you think of the idea of Harris being held responsible since she was tasked with migration issues? I just think it's kind of hard to deny the responsibility for helping these and other cities since they deal with migrants. She was put in charge of migration, and I just think this is the angle that everybody should look at, and because the borders are a thing. You can get around that, but
yeah.
Migration, she really was tasked with it.
She was tasked with the root causes of migration in the Triad region in Central America, and we're dealing with the fallout all over the place. And also, she was the vice president and the Harris and the Biden-Harris administration. So, yeah, Mark, I think you're right. And the fallout of those areas is coming home to roost now in the gang issue. Forget Springfield, Ohio. No, I don't want to. I love you guys in Springfield, Ohio. I didn't realize how many of you actually listen on a daily basis, but gracious. Per capita, I think I've heard from more of you in the last week than even from my Atlanta audience, and love that you guys listen. But let's not talk about you for just a moment. You're probably glad that we're going to talk about other places. In El Paso, Texas, in Aurora, Colorado, in Newark, New Jersey, Hackensack, New Jersey, and other places, this Venezuelan gang is starting to rear its head. It's causing problems for local law enforcement. And by the way, this gang is MS-13 on steroids. They will target the families of local law enforcement. They go after everybody. Fear, intimidation, threats, you name it. They're bad news. And they're spreading in this country because of the policies of the Biden-Harris administration. And blue states are way more permissive with their sanctuary city policies. And even in red states, those areas of the states under Democratic control and their sanctuary policies are coming to play. Look at Athens, Georgia. The mayor of Athens, Clark County, Georgia, will insist till he is blue in the face that his city is not a sanctuary city, and yet they've implemented all the policies to make it a sanctuary city. It's just like, You know, Common Core. Common Core is despised by parents. And so what schools are doing is they just change the name of it. We're not using Common Core. We're using federal core systems. Well, what's that? Well, it's not Common Core. It's they just changed the name and it's the same thing. Same thing. I'm trying to leave out personal anecdotes of my producer here and what he and his family are going through. It's Common Core. They just changed the name. And this sort of thing is happening regularly around the country where Democrats are implementing policies. They're saying, well, it's not sanctuary city policies. It's sanctified city policies. It's sanctification policies. It's good for our souls to do this. No, it's a sanctuary city. Athens, Clark County, Georgia, sanctuary city. They pretend they're not, but they are. Ask Lakin Riley what she thinks about that, Mr. Mayor. And families are having enough of the fallout. And they're beginning to flee these blue states for red states. And many of them are conservative to begin with. Remember, here's the data point that always blows my mind. It's true. In Texas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, the non-native Texans who moved in from California had a higher propensity of voting for Ted Cruz than the native Dallas Texans. The people who moved to Texas were more conservative in the urban areas than the existing Texans. And this is the pattern that's being held up. As people leave blue states, it's the conservatives who are beginning to flee those states and consolidating and shifting red states and even purple states and making purple states even redder. This is from the Institute for Family Studies from Lyman Stone and Brad Wilcox. You'd think that Minnesota is a mecca for families, judging by the adulatory press coverage that Democratic Governor Tim Walz's family policy record is in the state has received from liberal professors and pundits. Celebrating the vice presidential nominee's moves to expand the child tax credit for poor families, advance paid family leave, and provide universal school lunch in the state, Washington Post columnist Catherine Rampel wrote these family policies provide, quote, further evidence that one major party cares about children and families and the other does not, end quote. She added, quote, Democrats should adopt a new agenda. Make America Minnesota already. Mama. And fair's fair. Governor Walz did implement some policies that we think helped Minnesota families. But Rampel might be surprised to learn that Minnesota isn't a magnet for families with children. Quite the opposite, in fact. Although a number of Minnesota's progressive family policies are popular in polls of parents, when it comes to family policy broadly understood, the revealed preferences of parents often diverge from their stated preferences for parts of the mama state agenda. More families with children moved out of Minnesota in 2021 and 2022 than moved into the state, according to our analysis of the American Community Survey. In fact, Minnesota ranked in the worst third for family migration as one of 18 states in the nation that saw more families leave than move into the state. Minnesota's no outlier. Parents are not generally moving towards states with the preferred family policies of progressives. They're moving out of those states, including Democratic ones like New York, California, Massachusetts, and Oregon, all well known for their liberal family policies. Blue states that voted for Democratic presidential candidates in 2016 and 2020 lost 213,000 families with children in 2021 and 2022, a 0.7% net decline. While red states that voted for Donald Trump in both elections gained 181,000 families, a 0.6% net gain. Meanwhile, purple states that flipped between the two parties saw a 0.4% gain, 38,000 families. Here are the top 15 states that have lost the most families leaving these states. New York, Alaska, California, Oregon, Washington, Massachusetts, Illinois, Hawaii, Louisiana, Colorado, Virginia, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Maryland, and Utah. Utah only lost 2,000 families. New York lost 71,000 families. But in terms of per capita, Utah is a 0.3% decline. New York is a 1.9% decline. Per capita, Alaska, which is a Republican state, lost per capita, about as many people as New York, which is kind of wild to me, and California. There are very few Republican states in there, though. There's Utah. There's Louisiana. Wisconsin is a swing state in there. But Utah, Louisiana, Alaska, the only 3 Republican states on the list. What these guys note, Lyman and Brad, is that families with children by the hundreds of thousands are moving away from states with supposedly generous family policies, from refundable child tax credits to universal school lunches to states without those policies. Where are they going? Here are the states with net migration increases. Idaho is number 1, a 2.3% per capita increase. Idaho, New Hampshire, Montana, South Carolina, South Dakota, Arizona, Connecticut, Nevada, Vermont, Georgia, Maine, Oklahoma, Florida, Tennessee, Texas. Texas saw 53,000 families move in, but that's only an 0.8% increase. These states overwhelmingly are, now, there are more Democratic states in this list than there are Republicans on the other. But the big ones, Idaho, got Montana, South Carolina, South Dakota, Georgia, Oklahoma, Florida, Tennessee, Texas. Huge numbers of people. 38,000 families moved to Texas, 22,000 to Georgia, 15,000 to South Carolina. They're not just at this point fleeing COVID. This is into 2022, into 2023. They're fleeing because these states have better education systems for their kids. They have more supportive homeschooling systems. They're cheaper to live in. Even the Democratic states, by and large, that they're moving to, most of the Democratic states on the list are more socially conservative. Families are going to areas where it's not the government supporting families, it's where government policies allow families to support themselves better. And that, by the way, is the key big takeaway here. Families are going not where they get government subsidy, but where the government gets out of the way so the family can determine its own future. That's the dividing line here. It's something for the Trump team to pay attention to. That when families are given a choice and can do it, they're going to states where the government gets out of the way so the families can choose they want private school or homeschool, and they can take advantage of tax credits and tax deductions for it. Where maybe the child tax credit from the state isn't so high, but the cost of living is low enough that it makes a difference. They're going to places where they feel safe culturally as well, where the woke values of some of these major progressive states aren't on display. Economically, states are attracting these families because of jobs and lower taxes. And red states have generally resisted letting their schools and sports be guided by avant-garde gender theories. There's a lesson here for the progressive states, but the problem for the progressive states is that they are so into the avant-garde gender theories, as these guys write, they can't give it up. It's become a cult of personality and identity politics. That if your boy decides he's a girl, well, everybody's got to treat him as a girl, and the parents can have their son taken away from them because they refuse to go along with the agenda. That's not going to happen in Florida. That's not going to happen in Texas. That's not going to happen in Georgia. That's not going to happen in South Carolina. Turns out families don't want government handout. Families want the government out of their lives. This, again, is ripe for the Trump team to make a big deal about. Family policies. Families don't want government handouts. Families want the government out of their lives. Kamala Harris blasts Republicans saying they want a government small enough to fill up your bedroom. The reality is, the bedroom is the only place Democrats don't want the government to be. The Democrats want the government to be in every other room of your house, in every other sector of your life. And they actually want the government in your bedroom as well, just for other reasons. Republicans, this ties perfectly into the economy. You want a family-friendly environment? That family-friendly environment is going to have low taxes, school choice, and less bureaucracy in your children's lives. There's a way to plot a message to the future that the data shows will work.
Blinds.com's Cyber Monday Last Chance is happening now. Don't miss out on up to 45% off site-wide. A Blinds.com design expert can help you make the perfect selection on your schedule. We can handle everything from measure to your whole home installed for one low cost. With over 25 million windows covered, Blinds.com is the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings. Save up to 45% site-wide, plus a free professional measure right now at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Hello there. Now's my time of day to make you all mad. Can we talk about candidate recruitment? It's becoming a problem, and it is particularly going to cost the GOP some potential seats. Mark Robinson is the Republican gubernatorial nominee in North Carolina, and he and his wife have a number of business practices and bounce checks and other things that are coming to blow up on their faces. And look, even I was dazzled by the guy, but someone should have done some opposition research. And one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of major Republicans rallied around him in the primary, got him the nomination, and they're nowhere to be seen since. Looks like North Carolina might become a Democratic gubernatorial win again. Roy Cooper, the current Democratic governor, is there. North Carolina has a history of electing Democratic governors. You got to have a very sharp Republican to win that state, even as the state legislature tends to be Republican and the presidential race tends to be Republican. In fact, though, Kamala Harris's team is signaling, based on their internal polling, they think because of Mark Robinson's weaknesses in the state, they might be able to bypass Pennsylvania and go through North Carolina as a way to make their electoral college 270 gain. Now, the other issue is Carrie Lake out in Arizona. That's another seat the GOP should be winning, but she's not going to win that seat. Republicans have now pulled their funding. They've given up. They don't see any sign that Carrie Lake is going to be able to do it. And time again, it comes as someone somewhere convinced Donald Trump to make an endorsement of a candidate who is not pulling his weight. Like Herschel Walker in Georgia. In 2022, I tried to warn everybody that there was so much baggage that maybe Kemp's ground game would get him into a runoff, but Kemp wouldn't be on the ballot in a runoff. And guess what happened? And everybody's like, no, we got to trust Donald Trump. We got to trust Donald Trump. Donald Trump says Herschel Walker's the guy. And, well, the Democrats now have that seat. We got to do better about discernment in candidates because we risk losing more seats that we could potentially win nationwide. And that's becoming a problem for Republicans where crazy is winning primaries and can't win general elections. Discernment. And you can say, well, the other Republicans are as bad as the Democrats, but those other Republicans wouldn't be voting to impeach Donald Trump like the Democrats would do if he gets elected. Now, great group out there trying to get people across the finish line is Americans for Prosperity, but they're trying more importantly to get ideas across the finish line. Americans for Prosperity is the leading and largest grassroots organization in the country. They're a do tank. They're not a think tank. They do the business of the conservative movement. They would love to have you involved at americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. If you go to americansforprosperity.org/volunteer, you can sign up with them. They have chapters in almost every state. They're building chapters in the states that they're not in, and they will train you to be a knowledgeable conservative activist to fight for common sense conservative solutions around the country for families, for school choice, for small businesses, for deregulation, for reform. They teach you how to make persuasive cases to your neighbors and to your friends and to your local government and your state government so you can be the smartest person in the room when it comes to these policy positions. They give you all the information, then they help you make a difference by teaching you how to persuade local elected officials, how to persuade your neighbors, how to knock on doors, how to get people registered to vote and get their absentee ballots. Go to americansforprosperity.org/volunteer today. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. Glad to have you with me. The phone number, 877-973-7425.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
Hang on. Sorry. Got a bunch of stuff going on here. Okay. All right. Scott Jennings was on CNN having a moment with the conversations about the assassination of Donald Trump. Before I move on, I want to play this for you.
But the rhetoric is on both sides. It's coming from the right.
It's
coming from the left.
The rhetoric. They have tried to kill this man twice. Okay. He got shot in the ear, and this guy was sitting up shop outside of a golf course to try to kill him this weekend. And I know after something like this happens, it's very fashionable to, talk about rhetoric on both sides. Donald Trump is the target, okay? He's the current target, and it's happening, and it's happened again. And I just, honestly, we have to have a conversation about elections. If you lose an election, the country's not going to come to an end, okay? What I want Democrats to do, honestly, is to say, it's okay. Like, if Donald Trump wins, democracy will not end, the Constitution will not end, we're not going to live in a dictatorship, there will not be a bloodbath. All the things they say that are totally fabricated, to me, it would be a good day to stop doing that.
Yes. Amen, amen, amen. You would be surprised how many people, though, believe it on TV. Now, here's the thing, and I should have said this earlier when I was talking about this. A lot of the Democratic politicians don't actually believe it. In fact, Ezra Klein, not exactly a conservative. Ezra Klein, the progressive writer, he was at Vox and now he's at the New York Times. He actually, in an interview, said that these Democratic politicians don't actually believe Donald Trump's a threat to democracy. They just say it because they know the base will believe it. It's true. There's so many things, so many people say that the base doesn't believe. We gotta, I don't know. I don't want to do it today. I'm not well prepped, but let me just spend a moment on this supposed affidavit. People want to be lied to. Ugly people want to be told they're beautiful. After the debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, an anonymous account claimed that there was a whistleblower who wanted everyone to know ABC gave Kamala Harris the questions in advance. And an affidavit would be forthcoming. Everyone said, of course she was given the questions. Now, let's be clear here. The questions were obvious and predictable. There was no reason for her to get the questions from ABC News because the questions were obvious and predictable. But yet, some of Trump's supporters, they want to believe. They want to believe. So then it was kind of funny on Sunday. Marjorie Taylor Greene tweets, I just heard that the whistleblower died in a car crash. We don't even know who the whistleblower is. And the whistleblower is now dead in a car crash. Convenient. And then it turns out, oh my gosh, the whistleblower, that we've got the affidavit and he's alive. We don't know anything about him. So what is this affidavit? So this affidavit looks like someone who didn't know what they were doing wrote it out. And everything is redacted. The name is redacted. The notary is redacted. Everything is redacted. There's no identifying information except it tells you exactly what you want to hear. And it has all of the latest buzzy talking points for the GOP. And it's filled with spelling mistakes and grammar errors. But somehow it's got to be real because it tells you exactly what you want to hear. And all the things they weren't allowed to ask Kamala Harris, including about her brother and this other stuff. I mean, stuff they wouldn't ask anyway. The amount, like, I can look at that and say, this isn't a real affidavit. Like, I can produce something like this and put it online and say, oh, look, I got a competing affidavit. I've got the real whistleblower, and it denies all the stuff. I mean, it's garbage. It's scam. And yet there are people circulating like, look, it's true. There's a whistleblower. It's a whistleblower. We've got the affidavit. We don't know who it is. We don't know who the notary public is. Compare this with the situation where they tried to steal Graceland from Elvis Presley's heirs. They produced an affidavit with the actual name unredacted and the name of the notary public unredacted, so you could actually go verify the information for yourself. And that's how it turned out to realize it was a scam. The notary public says, I don't even know what this is. I've never done this in my life. I've never signed this. But with this one, it's just so convenient. Everything is so redacted, so it gives you exactly what you want to believe. and then make sure that there's no identifying information so no one can question it. You're just supposed to believe. It is a by faith belief. And there are so many people who have put their faith in politics that they are willing to, by faith, believe that ABC gave easily guessed questions to Kamala Harris, and then also believe that she then had earbuds in her ears to give her the answers to the questions that she had prior knowledge of. Why are so many people so stupid that they want to believe the dumbest things and they get mad at you for telling them the truth? Well, okay, they're not really mad at me for telling them the truth. They're mad at me for telling them they're stupid, but they need to know they're stupid because clearly no one has ever told them they're stupid. It's like telling the ugly kid she's beautiful. Someone needs to tell the ugly kid, no, lose some weight. I get told I'm fat all the time by these people. Well, they need to know they're stupid. Now I can move on. The amount of people who want to believe conspiracy theories. Life is too short for all the conspiracy theories. Everybody wants to make the simple things complex and the complex things simple. Well, there's a complex thing happening around the world right now, and there's a story about it happening in Finland, which is rather interesting to me. In Finland, a growing number of young men are becoming Orthodox monks. This is from AFP. Early starts, strict routines, and discipline. More and more young men in Finland are being drawn to the rigors of monastic life and its conservative values. In such a secular and progressive country, where experts had expected the young to be less religious, Christianity has been gaining ground, among young men at least. Inside the dazzling white Valamo Monastery, the country's oldest Eastern Orthodox abbey, the days begin at 6 a.m. with prayers, followed by breakfast and chores. Life here is much as it's been for hundreds of years. But despite the Spartan life, the brotherhood has been growing fast, expanding from around 10 monks to 18 in a few years. COVID was a turning point. Mandrate Father Michael tells the AFP. After that, we started to see an increase in interest. I think it's maybe the quite uncertain times we're living in. People want to have something steady, something to stand on. The number of Finns identifying as Christians has been declining for decades, but researchers began noticing a rise in young men's interest in religion around 5 years ago. I was at first very skeptical of the phenomenon. Kari Tervo Nimila, professor of practical theology at the University of Eastern Finland, told the AFP, but the same results have been repeated over and over and over in the survey data. Inside an old wooden church adorned with icons, Father Stephanos, who was raised in an Orthodox family, said he has always just known he would become a monk. It's been great, the 23-year-old says. All those earthly stresses people have. He was a student living on his own for the first time when he embarked on the monastic path 2 years ago. Then the war in Ukraine started, which brought in more stuff on top of all that, he said. Around 63% of Finns are evangelical Lutherans, which with only 1% belonging to the Orthodox Church, the country's second largest national church, under the authority of the Patriarch of Constantinople in Istanbul. So here's the thing. Long story short, this is happening around the world. Young women are continuing to be secular and progressive. Young men are increasingly Christian, not religious, Christian and conservative. I want to tie this into some data from Barna from a couple of years ago. If you're not familiar with Barna, Barna is a religious survey company. And you know what Barna said the number one reason a young person leaves a church is? I want to say this from 2019, before COVID. It's pre-COVID, right before COVID. The number one reason in 2019 that a young person left a church, it had nothing to do with the church being too conservative, with the church not supporting gay marriage or trans rights or abortion. It had nothing to do with their falling out of belief. The number one reason a young person leaves a church is they come to conclude that the pastor doesn't believe what the Bible says. That's it. That's the number one reason a young person leaves a church. There was a survey a while back about the Church of Canada, and 80-some-odd% of the parishioners believed in miracles. Less than 40% of the pastors believed in miracles. Something like 70% of the congregants believed that Jesus Christ was the only pathway to salvation, less than 20% of the preachers did. The church was in decline. There's the reason why. This isn't theology here. This is my point. Young men in particular, in a world that is increasingly hostile to young men being men. Remember all the Democratic conversations about the Republicans are the epitome of toxic masculinity. Tim Walz, who will hug another dude and kiss him on the cheek. That's the sensitive sort of dude we're supposed to have these days. A lot of young men are rebelling from that attitude. They want to be gentlemen. They don't want to be toxic, but they recognize the world defines them as toxic. And they're trying to find their place in the world. And their place is not elevating women through a glass ceiling. Their place is to be leaders. And increasingly, churches are recognizing that young men are either going to come into the church or they're going to fall into a pagan society and it's going to go bad. Look at the Andrew Tates of the world. Andrew Tate identifies as Muslim these days. And Andrew Tate is the epitome of toxic masculinity, and a lot of young men are going in his direction. And then there's Jordan Peterson. A lot of young men are headed in the direction of Jordan Peterson. My son really likes Jordan Peterson. My son got me to take him to a Jordan Peterson show in Atlanta. And he spends a lot of time meditating on theology and Christianity and the deep nature of Scripture. It appealed to my son. There are two paths, into or out of the church, for men. And more and more young men are trying to go into the church, but the paths that they're taking are not necessarily deep theological paths at first. They're trying to find themselves. Because here's the dirty little secret. Everybody, unless they work very hard to suppress it, has a little voice in their head that tells them they're here for a purpose. Some people shut that out. They become atheists. They say, nope, this is all it is, and then we die. But a lot of young men are trying to find that purpose. They hear that voice, and they go looking, and a lot of them find God in the process. Which God they find is important. But they're trying to find a God. They're trying to find some control. The fact that this is a global phenomenon, it's not just an American phenomenon. We've been talking about it in this country for a while now. But it's happening all over Europe as well. A European society in particular that has devalued masculinity is now starting to see the rise of young men going back to church to worship a guy who is willing to live a perfect life and be killed and conquer death. And it's intriguing to them. There's a mystery to it to them. It's an optimistic sign for the future. But the question is, where does it end? Because a lot of people go searching for God and they find the devil instead. Take some discernment. And running this whole monologue full circle, we're in a day and age where fewer and fewer people have real discernment for what is true and what is not. A lot of people want to be lied to, and their discernment is to reject the truth teller in favor of the liar, because the liar at least is comforting and entertaining to them. And things can go badly when that happens. You know, things can go badly for you in your home or your office if your computer doesn't work. Vision Computer can take care of you at your home or your office. They can build you the computer that you want and need that's going to last you for quite a while, as opposed to the one-size-fits-all big box store computer that's going to be outdated next year. Vision Computers not only can build you a computer, but then you get their free 5-star customer service where you get a special number to call, and in 15 seconds or less, they answer the phone number. They answer the phone, and they tell you what's going on. They answer any of your questions. How do I do this? Where's this file? I can't find this. My email's not working. My printer's offline. What do I do? They take care of you, but they can do it for your business as well. All you do is call them at 404-COMPUTE or go to visioncomputers.com. Let's say you didn't buy your computer from Vision, but you need their answer solutions. You need their help. You need their tech support. You don't have an in-house IT guy, and you can't afford one anyway. For $179 a year, Vision Computers can be your in-house IT. So your employees get the number, they call, 15 seconds or less, someone answers the phone, gives them the answer, helps them with their email, helps them with their printer, helps them with their lost file, helps them with installing or deleting programs on their computer, whatever you need. Vision can take care of you. If you get their computers, this comes for free. If not, $179 a year. VisionComputers.com. VisionComputers.com, or call them at 404-COMPUTE. In fact, any one of you nationwide, they can help any business nationwide. If you call them at 404-COMPUTE and you tell them Eric sent you, you're going to get an even better deal. My wife and I, we've got a Vision Computers computer in our house that our son uses as his gaming PC. They built it. It's going to last him through college. It's great. They're great. You'll love them. 404-COMPUTE. Sleeper issue for all of us to pay attention to. We need to pay attention to this. Reince Priebus was on, I think this is on ABC, and he had this to say.
Or male voters under 30. The reality is that she didn't address the most important issues that are affecting the election, which is the economy and the border. And she didn't address it, which is why the polling isn't moving. So while she lied about Trump, he's going to pass a national abortion ban. He's going to monitor women's pregnancies. She didn't answer the question that David Muir asked, are you better off than you were 4.5 years ago? Didn't answer it. Didn't answer the question on whether or not, why she waited so long to address the border. And she didn't answer the question on whether she supported a single restriction on abortion.
That was Reince. He also said this.
We're also seeing is that Donald Trump is remaining very strong with Hispanics in that poll at 41%, which is
41%. 41% popularity for Donald Trump in their own polling. That's a really big deal. Now, will that number stay? Probably not. Historically, those numbers tend to fade over time, but it's still going to be high. There's also 1 in 5 black men, roughly 20% of black men right now, support Donald Trump. Y'all, that has a lot to do with why the polling is so close. Non-white men don't like Kamala Harris. And I said that when the possibility became that Joe Biden might drop out. And I got attacked as a racist for saying it, but it's true. I have a lot of black callers to this program, male and female. And the thing that comes up repeatedly from these callers that you and I don't have to point out being white people, but what they'll convey to you is that the black community doesn't think she's had what they consider to be the black experience in America. And black men in particular are turned off by Kamala Harris and her time as Attorney General throwing a lot of black men in prison. That's why the race continues to be close. The Democrats knew they had to get Joe Biden out of the race, and they couldn't overcome a wave of support for Kamala Harris, but she's not a strong candidate. She's not a strong candidate. Donald Trump can completely pull this thing off. Just got to focus. The economy, the border, crime. Yes, the downside. Donald Trump is a candidate who oftentimes has trouble focusing. This is the second would-be assassin. That should give him reason to focus. If he doesn't win this thing, he's going to prison. That should give him reason to focus. He needs reason to focus. But the polling right now is not bad for him. After everything we've seen for the last couple of months, after everything we've seen, after the shakeup and all that, Kamala Harris is 0.2% ahead of him in the battleground stage, 1.7% ahead of him in the Real Clear Politics polling average nationwide. That gives Donald Trump the advantage in the Electoral College in the polling right now. So keep focus, but don't panic. And there's no reason to descend into crazy. Stay reality-based. And that's going to help you win. Stay reality-based. That's going to help you win. All right. We are out of time today. I will be back with you tomorrow. Lord knows what's going to happen. I just feel like we're in perpetual Groundhog Day these days with the news cycle. Let's hope no one else goes after Donald Trump, and we need the Secret Service to go to the practice range and fire and take better shots to stop these people.